Man, I think I need a haircut. Alright, I got a camera review today. This guy here, Sony RX100 Mark V. Now I know the Mark 6 is out as well, but I own the Mark V. The Mark 6 was out, and I'll tell you later why I chose the Mark V over the Mark 6. I feel that I have a pretty good understanding of this camera to do at least a review from a travel point of view, because that's basically what this camera is really meant for. Certainly this camera is powerful enough to do all kinds of other things, and I'll talk about that later. But specifically, I just got back from a vacation in Asia for a month, and this was the only camera I took. First off, I'll just say how much I love this camera. This camera does so much for such a small package. However, it does have some, I don't want to say disadvantages, but quirks, let's say. First off, the menu system in Sony cameras, I don't know why, but they're just not very good. Maybe I'm not that experienced using them, but I just find them not very good. Compared to my Canon that I'm shooting on right now, the menu systems are just a little easier to use, plus it has the touch screen, which leads me to the Mark V does not have a touch screen. Now at this price point, this guy's not inexpensive, even though the Mark 6 is out. And come on, like there's touch screens on like all kinds of cameras way before this one came out, but for whatever reason Sony decided to not make this touch screen. But anyways, you can get the Mark 6, which does have the touch screen. But there are some issues with this touch screen, because I actually did test out the Mark 6, and on the Mark 6, the focusing, you can only focus, compose your shot and focus with the touch screen, the pull focus, when you're doing still shots. Video mode, it does not work, which is like, I know Canon has the dual pixel AF and you can do the touch and to pull the focus and everything, like phenomenal, just awesome. The Mark 6 of this does not even have that. Anyways, so I digress, but we're doing the review on the 5. So related to the menu, switching between modes for the video modes is not that easy. You have to go into the menu system to switch between like 30 frames per second or 60 frames per second. You can switch it to a memory recall in order to do that, which I've mapped. Also, there's no dedicated ISO button, so I mapped it to the trash can button. It's a custom button where you can map functions to. I just so happened mapped it to ISO for me. This dial back here, and it's also a joypad, that's what you use to pull focus or to focus on a different part of the screen or whatever you're composing. Compared to a touch screen, it's really frustrating at times, not all the time, because the focusing system in this is really good. I don't know, I worked around it, and for the most part, I would say 95% of the time it was fine. So something really odd, there's a ring on the front here that you can rotate, and when you have it in manual mode or one of the manual modes, such as like aperture priority, that changes your aperture, okay? Even when you have it in manual, it maps the aperture to that. But let's say you want to do manual, but you also want to do manual focus as well. Well, what ends up happening is it remaps this ring from being aperture to manual focus. But then when you want to change the aperture, you got to fiddle on the back here in order to switch to change the aperture. Anyways, a minor little thing. I generally don't manual focus with this camera anyway, but a little frustrating. Minor quirks, again, this is like that 5%. The other 95% of this camera, awesome. So another thing about the focusing, and this is related to video, you can only have continuous autofocus in video mode. You can't move using the joystick to select a focus point and pull focus to a different part of the composition or on the screen. What you can do is you can do lock on, and when you push the middle button, you can do subject tracking with it. Not perfect, but it's not bad. Or I could be using it wrong, but I don't know. I never had problems with Canon. For the most part, traveling with this though, I never really had too many issues with the focusing. And it also do face tracking, and it works really well. As soon as it sees a face, it locks on, not a problem. So this works really well for the face tracking. So just a few more quirks about this camera. I don't have too many other ones, and these are all small ones. The 4K shooting on this camera is limited to, I believe, 5 minutes. Otherwise, I think the camera is to prevent overheating. A note on battery life. The battery life on this camera is not very good. Shooting stills, it does a really good job. Shooting 1080p video, it's pretty good. Once you get into the higher frame rates, this thing chews through batteries like there is no tomorrow. So if you're gonna be traveling with this, I recommend having at least 3 batteries with you. And getting this little portable charger thing. This thing is awesome. It charges slow, but once you're done for the day, you can plug this in at back at your hotel or apartment or whatever, and have the camera charged via USB as well. So you can have 2 batteries charging at once, and this is really light. It's really inexpensive. When you buy a battery, I think it costs like $10 more to include this little travel charger. It's really handy. And the nice thing is, you can plug this into a USB power pack, leave it in your bag or take it with you, and you can charge your batteries on the go. So really handy. But yes, I recommend getting a bunch of batteries. So the last thing is, if you want to do time lapse with this camera, is you can't, at least not out of the box. You need to pay additional $10 to Sony and go under App Store, connect this to Wi-Fi, and download the app. It's like, come on, you could include it in the software. Canon certainly does it on some of their cameras now. The one other last thing about this camera is there's no mic input, unfortunately. If this had a mic input, this would be a vlogger's dream come true. I don't do a lot of vlogging, but on my vacation I did some. It would have been nice to not rely on the built-in internal mic, because of wind noise especially. Okay, let's get into talking about what I love about this camera. First off, size. So pocketable, fits in my pocket, fits in my pack. It takes up no room whatsoever. Love this camera for the size of it and the features that are included into this little tiny body. Just freaking awesome. So the reason why I chose the Mark V over the Mark VI, and there's a few small reasons, or maybe they're big reasons actually, is the aperture on this guy goes from 1.8 to 2.8, and it's 1.8 at the widest at 24 millimeters. But as soon as you leave that 24 millimeter, it goes up to 2.8, which is still very respectable. All the way up to 70 millimeters, which I forgot to mention, this goes from 24 to 70 millimeters. But if you're watching this video, you should probably want my opinion on this as opposed to just reading off specs. Now, the Mark VI, on the other hand, it has that really great telephoto zoom lens, I think all the way up to, I think it's 200 millimeters. I might be wrong on that, but it has a crazy long zoom on it. So the main reason why I kind of went with this is actually just the aperture, and also the focusing. If it had the Canon style focusing with the dual pixel where you could select, I probably would have chose, I probably might have went with the 6, but I went with the 5, mostly because of that 1.8. Great for low light. I can attest that the low light in this camera is awesome. The electric viewfinder is pretty cool. I really like that. You pop that up, pull it out, it it turns on, and then when you put it back down, it shuts off. Great for if the sun's really bright. Of course, the flip up screen, gotta have that. Love that flip up screen to do vlogging or to compose some selfies or just composing different angles, or if you're like, want to shoot like this or you want to shoot up like this. Really, really handy. Also, the Mark V versus the Mark VI has an ND filter. So this one retains the ND filter, whereas the Mark VI, for whatever reason, doesn't have the ND filter. And it's nice to have that ND filter, get those nice buttery pictures of waterfalls, or for whatever reason that you might need to adjust the shutter speed so that it's slower, but so it doesn't blow out your exposure. Having that ND filter built in is really nice, especially if you're doing video. You want to keep your shutter speed double of your frames per second. The power zoom on this is really nice. So the zoom, you can zoom in and out using the little dial, so there's no jitteriness, like whereas if you're manually on a digital SLR or on a mirrorless, on some of those lenses it can be a little jittery. The zoom on this with the power zoom makes it really steady. So last few things around the frame rates on this camera. This camera shoots insane frame rates. You can get all the way up to, I think, 960 frames per second, although it really crops in and you need a lot of light. It's probably not that usable, but up to like, I'd say 240 frames per second. The 120 is awesome. I shoot some 120 and it just looks so smooth, and you can really do some cool slow motion with that. And you got so many different video modes and the bit rates. Just this camera for video is just, I love it. I can't believe the video quality you can get out of such a small camera. It just totally sold me on this camera. So one other thing about this camera is when you're doing video and you're vlogging, let's say, the camera will decide if it thinks that there's something neat going on, it will take a picture and store it while you're filming in video. And what ends up happening is you get some kind of funny pictures, but it'll keep taking them, so you end up having to delete them. I have turned off the feature, so last thing I want to talk about and what I love is this camera takes awesome pictures. The autofocusing for this camera is awesome. I forget how many autofocusing points there are and how much of it covers on the sensor, but it's just, it takes such great photos. And besides the video, I wanted to, you know, obviously document pictures of my travels. And I think the previous versions of these cameras use contrast detection, whereas now this one will use phase detection. And the autofocusing for when you're doing high frame rate burst shooting, like for sports photography, not that you would use this for sports photography because the zoom on this isn't, you know, it's only up to 70mm, but this thing shoots insane, just absolutely insane burst mode. Crazy. I only used it a handful of times when I was traveling, but yeah, works really well. It's really impressive. And the last thing is the Wi-Fi connectivity to this, to your phone, is really handy, especially if you want to get those pictures up on Instagram real quick. You can totally connect this to your phone, transfer those files, go through the files, see what you've shot for review. It just works really well. And just a couple last things. I have a few tripods that I like traveling with. I like these, this guy here, this is a Manfrotto Pocket MP3-BK thing. Little tripod's great for when I'm doing time lapses and I want to stick this up on a windowsill or something. This is a really great tripod. And this last tripod here was really awesome. A lot of vloggers use this tripod, so what I like about this tripod, screw it onto the RX100, gives you a nice solid handle, nice grip. It's not big, it's not like a selfie stick, so you're not gonna get in trouble walking around with this, because some places don't want you using selfie sticks. I never had a problem with this. You can take it out, take some selfies, pictures, because, you know, it's just really your arm. Really great for holding like that, because the camera's so small, taking pictures, getting up on the viewfinder like that. Really, really nice. And it's also, of course, a tripod, so then you can just set it down, do your time lapses or steady some shots if you're doing some night photography. You know, it's just nice and small. Put this on a table, just really great. And the ball feature of this is just really awesome. You can put it in any angle that you want. So I highly recommend this tripod. Even if you don't have an RX100, for any other point and shoot or even a small mirrorless digital SLR, this tripod's really good, this Manfrotto. I don't know what the model is. I believe it's the MTPIXI-B. I don't know. Anyways, I'll put links in the description below to those two tripods and also the Sony RX100. So anyways, that is my not so quick review of this awesome travel camera, the Sony RX100 Mark V. Anyways, I'm gonna be posting videos of my travels, hopefully whenever I get around to editing some of those videos. So thanks for watching, consider subscribing, and also if some of you subscribe to my channel, if you made it this far, I plan on a new surfboard build here in the next few months, possibly over the winter. I'll see how things go, and I'll start posting videos on that once, if or when I get around to it. So thanks for watching, and bye for now.